let's talk about the 5 things you shouldn't do if you drive a manual transmission car. Now, let me just say this about that. The manual transmission is becoming a rarity.
Yes.
And it is also a built-in anti-theft device because no one knows how to drive a manual transmission.
Or valet device.
Or valet, yeah.
Or valet, yeah. We do not drive. Do you see that sign now? We do not drive manual transmission cars. Okay, so what do? You can't park anywhere else, and you said valet. We'll let you park it over there. Oh, okay. No tip for you. All right. So
I don't want to do it now.
What are the other things about the manual transmission car?
All right, these 5 things. Well, the stick shift cars, like you said, they're not in vogue anymore. But it is a fun way to drive, keeping you fully engaged on the road and allowing to do that. So using a manual transmission puts responsibility on the finer things of driving. So resting your hand on the shifter. It's important that every time you shift gears, you fully remove your hand from the shifter. Don't do that. You attempt to leave your hand on the shifter, especially if you've been shifting a lot, but it's not good for the gearbox. The components of the shifter are sensitive. They need to have clean shifts, so the slightest bit of unnecessary pressure strains them.
Don't
Do
touch it.
Number 4, resting your foot on the clutch. It's similar to the vein of the shifter knob.
No.
And you might use it frequently as you shift, using it as a footrest. It's entirely not your fault, though,
Burn
Don.
up the clutch.
Yeah, because most modern cars with automatic transmissions have a footrest on the left side next to the brake pedal.
Called the dead pedal.
Yeah, exactly right. So if you're used to driving as automatic and you get into a stick shift car, it's just a natural habit to do that. So they're very sensitive also. If you leave it on there, sometimes you'll actually engage the clutch, depending on how sensitive and what kind of car it is.
Or you'll certainly engage the throwout bearing and have that thing blow out on you.
Exactly.
And then might as well have a new transmission.
And that's a lot of money. So number 3, Mike, staying in gear while stopped. Whenever you come to a complete stop in a manual transmission car, you're supposed to shift the gear into neutral. Leaving it in the start mode or start position, leaving it in gear is not good for it. So leaving the car in gear while stopped.
Because it engages the clutch.
Right.
You
It puts a strain on the gearbox.
You're looking at me like, oh, no, what is he talking about?
Well,
I know you, Mars.
I don't drive that much in this kind of traffic. And in my mind, I get to the red light, I got my foot on the clutch because I'm going to use it pretty quick.
Oh, God.
Well,
you're such a liar. You know that as well as I do because you were never taught to take your foot off the clutch and put the car in neutral.
That's right. I wasn't. That just. I mean, what we're saying kind of makes sense because we all know shift happens, but it's just not the way I was taught to do it.
Well, I will tell you this: I had a friend of mine, acquaintance, not friend, but acquaintance of mine, that in the automatic transmission car, he'd pull up to stoplight and put it into neutral.
Really?
And then every single time. Drove me insane because every time that he'd put it in drive. Every time you put it in drive, it clunk, clunk, clunk.
Yeah. Well,
why are you doing that?
But the engine vibration also can damage the transmission parts, the small sensitive parts. Just the vibration alone can vibrate them. Huh. So number 2, shifting without the clutch, Don. Whenever you shift gears on a manual transmission, you need to put the clutch in all the way to fully unlock the shifter. The lever will still move, but the clutch isn't pressed down. Forcing the shifter is possibly the worst thing you could do for your gearbox. It's if you're
Shut
unlucky.
up! What?
No. I'm just thinking. I had an old Muncie, aluminum case Muncie.
You could jam
and
those.
about 6,000 RPM. You had to hammer that thing, and sooner or later, it's going to go into gear, clutch or no clutch.
And if you're unlucky, you could leave your shifter limp and useless. Number 1, coasting in neutral. It's an old trick used by some drivers to save gas. When you're coasting in neutral, your car has drastically reduced its functionality. If you're rolling down a hill at high speed, extremely rough road, and it's going to be hard to stop that vehicle. If something jumps out in front of you, you could crash. Coasting in neutral is illegal in several states, so even if you save money on the gas, you could still use it for the ticket.
Well, I think that there's some parts that are still moving, and even when you're coasting, that you have to be aware of. Make sure you have plenty of lubrication for it.
Yeah, don't leave it limp.
And unlubricated.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you have it. Those are the 5 things you're not supposed to do.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
We all learned something.